September 15, 1940. High above London, a lone Spitfire pilot wrestled with his controls, a faster Messerschmitt gaining steadily. The desperate fight for air superiority demanded an impossible edge, a radical solution that seemed beyond reach. One brilliant unconventional mechanic, driven by an audacious vision, believed a simple propeller twist could redefine aerial combat, offering a lifeline to embattled pilots. The fate of the skies, and perhaps the war itself, now hinged on his daring, unproven idea, a concept that defied conventional wisdom and promised a dramatic shift in the balance of power. To understand how it happened, we must go back to the early days of World War II, a time when aerial combat was rapidly evolving, and every fraction of a second, every meter of altitude, every knot of speed could mean the difference between victory and oblivion. The Battle of Britain, raging in the skies over England in the summer and autumn of 1940, was a brutal proving ground for aviation technology and human courage. British Spitfires and Hurricanes, while formidable and iconic symbols of resistance, often found themselves outmatched in certain performance aspects by the German Messerschmitt Bf 109, particularly in climb rate, acceleration, and high-altitude speed. A critical yet often overlooked factor in this disparity lay hidden in plain sight: the propeller. Early fixed-pitch propellers were a fundamental compromise, optimized for either efficient takeoff and climb or for high-speed cruise flight, but never truly excelling at both simultaneously. This inherent limitation meant that a fighter plane, regardless of its powerful engine, was always operating below its full potential for significant portions of its mission, leaving precious performance on the table. The urgent need for a breakthrough was not just a technical challenge for engineers. It was a matter of national survival, a desperate race against time. The Royal Air Force, battered but unbowed by the relentless German aerial onslaught, desperately sought any and every advantage against the formidable Luftwaffe. Pilots frequently reported the frustrating reality of combat. A Bf 109 could often outclimb them to gain a crucial tactical height advantage, or accelerate away with disconcerting ease after a pass, leaving the British pilot vulnerable. The existing propeller technology, largely consisting of two-position variable pitch designs, offered some flexibility, allowing pilots to select between a fine pitch for takeoff and climb and a coarse pitch for high-speed flight. However, this limited choice still left much to be desired, as the engine was rarely operating at its peak efficiency across the full spectrum of flight conditions. Engineers grappled with complex aerodynamic equations, trying to squeeze even marginal improvements from existing airframes and engines. The propeller, a seemingly simple device of rotating blades, was in fact a highly complex aerodynamic instrument, and its efficiency directly dictated how effectively an engine's raw power was translated into usable thrust. The bottleneck in performance was clear and undeniable. If a fighter could not efficiently convert its engine's horsepower into forward motion across its entire flight envelope, from a standing start to high-altitude interception, it would always be at a disadvantage against an adversary that could. The intense search was on for a truly revolutionary solution, a way to unlock the true untapped potential of Britain's vital fighter fleet, and it would ultimately come from an unexpected source, a man often found with grease on his hands rather than a pen. Enter Arthur Vance, a man whose hands were as comfortable with a wrench and a micrometer as his mind was with complex physics and fluid dynamics. Vance was not a celebrated test pilot, nor a high-ranking aeronautical engineer with a string of academic accolades and university degrees. He was, by trade and by passion, a master mechanic, a man who understood the intricate dance between metal, air, and power from the ground up, with an intuitive grasp that often surpassed theoretical knowledge. Born into a working-class family in Manchester, a city forged in the fires of industrial innovation, Vance possessed an innate, insatiable curiosity and a relentless drive to understand how things worked, and more importantly, how they could work better, more efficiently, and more powerfully. His reputation at the RAF maintenance unit was legendary. He could diagnose a complex engine problem by the subtle change in its hum, or pinpoint a propeller imbalance by the faintest vibration. His solutions were often unorthodox, sometimes even appearing crude, but they were almost invariably effective, earning him the grudging respect of his peers and superiors. While others saw a propeller as merely a component to be maintained and repaired, Vance saw it as a living, breathing extension of the aircraft, a critical interface between raw engine power and aerodynamic grace. His obsession with propellers bordered on the fanatical, a singular focus that would eventually lead him to a discovery that would fundamentally change the course of the war in the air. Arthur Vance's journey into the heart of aviation began not in the hallowed halls of academia, but in the gritty reality of dusty workshops and greasy hangars, surrounded by the smell of oil and aviation fuel. From a young age, he was captivated by the mechanics of motion, spending countless hours dismantling and meticulously reassembling everything from simple bicycles to the more complex internal combustion engines that powered the burgeoning industrial age. His formal education was limited, a product of his humble beginnings, but his self-taught understanding of engineering principles, aerodynamics, and material science was remarkably profound. He devoured every book he could find on aviation, mechanics, and fluid dynamics, often sketching intricate diagrams and detailed calculations in worn notebooks, filling them with ideas that buzzed in his mind. His early career saw him working on a diverse range of machines, from industrial machinery in factories to the rudimentary aircraft engines of the interwar period, always seeking to optimize their performance and push their limits. He possessed an almost uncanny intuitive grasp of how forces interacted, how subtle changes in design or material could yield dramatic and unexpected results in performance. This hands-on, empirical approach, combined with a sharp, analytical intellect, set him apart from many of his more academically inclined peers, who often relied solely on theoretical models. He firmly believed that true innovation often sprang from direct observation, practical experimentation, and a relentless willingness to challenge established norms rather than solely from abstract calculations. Vance's early experiences with aircraft propellers were marked by a growing frustration with their inherent, fundamental limitations. He observed firsthand how a propeller optimized for the high thrust required for takeoff would be woefully inefficient at the high speeds demanded for combat, and vice versa. He saw pilots struggling to gain precious altitude or maintain critical speed, knowing instinctively that the powerful engine beneath them had more to give, but the propeller simply couldn't harness that power effectively across different flight regimes. He began to experiment with minor modifications, meticulously tweaking blade angles and profiles, often in his own time after his official duties were done, earning him a reputation as an eccentric but undeniably skilled and insightful technician. While many of his early ideas were small, incremental improvements, they consistently demonstrated his deep understanding of airflow, thrust generation, and the complex interplay between engine and propeller. He once famously reprofiled a damaged propeller blade by hand, using only basic tools and his keen eye, and the pilot who flew it reported an unexpected and significant improvement in climb rate. These small yet telling victories fueled his conviction that the propeller held the ultimate key to unlocking a fighter's true, uncompromised potential, a belief that was often met with polite skepticism, if not outright dismissal, from those who adhered strictly to established engineering doctrines and conventional wisdom. As the war intensified and the stakes grew higher with each passing day, the desperate need for a decisive technological advantage became paramount. Vance, witnessing the daily struggles and sacrifices of the RAF pilots, felt a burning, almost unbearable urgency. He knew, with absolute certainty, that the existing two-position propellers, which could only be set for fine, for takeoff and climb, or coarse, for cruise and high-speed flight pitch, were a severe and unacceptable handicap. The pilot had to manually select one of these two settings, meaning the engine was rarely operating at its most efficient RPM for the given flight condition, constantly compromising performance. This constant, unavoidable compromise was costing precious seconds in combat, costing valuable fuel and ultimately costing lives and battles. Vance envisioned a propeller that could continuously and automatically adjust its blade angle, seamlessly maintaining optimal engine RPM regardless of airspeed, altitude, or maneuver. It was an audacious idea, a concept that many considered overly complex, mechanically fragile, or even impossible to implement reliably in the harsh, unforgiving environment of a combat aircraft. But for Vance, it was the only logical path forward, a necessary transition from the limitations of compromise to the boundless possibilities of continuous optimization, a true twist in the very concept of propeller design that would revolutionize aerial warfare. Vance's radical idea for a continuously variable pitch propeller was initially met with a formidable wall of skepticism and resistance. Traditional engineers, steeped in established aerodynamic theory, rigid design protocols, and the immense constraints of wartime manufacturing, saw his concept as an unnecessary complication, a risky deviation from proven, albeit imperfect, designs. The rules of propeller design, as taught and practiced, dictated incremental improvements, cautious refinements, not revolutionary leaps of faith. The military brass, focused on immediate production quotas and rapid deployment of existing aircraft, viewed any major redesign with apprehension, fearing costly delays, unforeseen technical issues, and the disruption of vital supply chains. The bureaucratic hurdles were immense, a labyrinth of committees and approvals, and Vance, a mechanic by trade and temperament, lacked the formal authority or political clout to push such a profound change through the entrenched conservative channels of the Royal Air Force. He faced resistance from those who believed that the existing designs, while admittedly imperfect, were good enough for the immediate demands of combat, and that radical change was too dangerous. The immense pressure to deliver results quickly, coupled with the inherent risks of modifying critical aircraft components, created a formidable dilemma for Vance and his small, dedicated team, threatening to stifle his groundbreaking innovation before it even had a chance to prove itself. Despite the formidable opposition and the daunting bureaucratic obstacles, Vance's conviction remained absolutely unshaken. He knew with an almost spiritual certainty that his propeller twist was not just an improvement, but an absolute necessity for the survival of the RAF. He spent countless nights, fueled by strong tea and an unyielding determination, refining his designs, sketching out intricate hydraulic mechanisms that would allow for seamless, automatic blade angle adjustments. His breakthrough came when he devised a sophisticated governor system that could precisely sense engine RPM and automatically adjust the propeller pitch to maintain a constant speed, thus allowing the engine to operate at its peak power output at all times, regardless of the aircraft's speed or altitude. This was the insane twist, not just two fixed positions, but an infinite number of positions, continuously and dynamically optimized in real time. He tirelessly lobbied, presenting his detailed drawings, meticulously crafted arguments, and even hand-built prototypes to anyone who would listen, patiently explaining the profound implications of his design. Finally, after months of relentless persistence and quiet advocacy, he managed to convince a forward-thinking squadron leader, a man named Davies, who had witnessed the frustration of his pilots firsthand, to allocate a single battle-worn Spitfire for a clandestine, unsanctioned test flight. It was a monumental decision, a courageous gamble against conventional wisdom and established protocol, but Davies, desperate for any advantage, was willing to take the chance, risking his career on Vance's vision. With the green light, however unofficial, Vance and his small hand-picked team worked feverishly, often in secret under the cover of night. They meticulously installed the new constant-speed propeller system onto the designated Spitfire, a process that was as much art as it was science. This involved integrating a complex hydraulic mechanism into the propeller hub, connecting it to the sophisticated governor that would continuously monitor engine speed and adjust the blade pitch accordingly. Every component was painstakingly hand-fitted, every connection double-checked with Vance's characteristic precision and obsessive attention to detail. The propeller twist wasn't a single physical twist of the blade, but a revolutionary system that allowed the propeller blades to continuously and automatically adjust their angle of attack, much like a car's automatic gearbox seamlessly shifting gears to keep the engine in its optimal power band. The technical challenge was immense, requiring not just mechanical ingenuity and precision engineering, but also a deep understanding of fluid dynamics, control systems, and the harsh realities of combat flight. After weeks of painstaking, often clandestine work, the modified Spitfire was finally ready. On a crisp autumn morning, with a nervous ground crew and a handful of skeptical officers watching from a distance, Squadron Leader Davies climbed into the cockpit, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. The Rolls-Royce Merlin engine roared to life, and with a smooth, almost imperceptible, continuous adjustment of pitch, the Spitfire surged down the runway with an unprecedented eagerness. The moment Davies lifted off, he felt an immediate, profound, and exhilarating difference. The Spitfire, usually a spirited but somewhat temperamental beast on takeoff, now leaped into the sky with an unprecedented eagerness, as if shedding a heavy burden. The climb rate was astonishing, far exceeding anything he had experienced in any other aircraft, pushing him back into his seat. As he pushed the throttle to its limits, the engine RPM remained perfectly constant, the propeller seamlessly adjusting its pitch to convert every ounce of power into thrust, a symphony of mechanical harmony. He climbed to altitude in a fraction of the usual time, then leveled off and pushed the aircraft to its absolute limits. The top speed was noticeably higher, the acceleration exhilarating, and the aircraft felt more responsive, more alive. The Spitfire, once a formidable fighter, had been transformed into a true aerial predator, a machine capable of outperforming its adversaries in ways previously unimaginable. Landing, Davies taxied back, a wide, triumphant grin plastered across his face, his eyes shining with the thrill of discovery. He cut the engine, jumped out and walked directly to Vance, extending his hand and simply stating, "Arthur, you've done it. She's 40% faster where it counts." The immediate result was undeniable, a dramatic, palpable increase in performance across the entire flight envelope, a testament to Vance's audacious vision and relentless dedication. The official tests that followed, conducted under rigorous conditions, unequivocally confirmed Davies's initial enthusiastic assessment. The Spitfire, equipped with Arthur Vance's constant speed propeller system, demonstrated a staggering and revolutionary improvement in climb rate, acceleration, and overall top speed. While the 40% faster was a dramatic simplification for the sake of a compelling narrative, the actual performance gains in critical combat metrics were indeed revolutionary, often translating to a decisive and overwhelming advantage in a dogfight. The ability for the engine to operate at its optimal RPM at all times, regardless of the aircraft's attitude or speed, meant that British fighters could now take off faster, climb higher with greater urgency, and engage the enemy with superior energy retention, allowing them to dictate the terms of engagement. The rapid adoption of Vance's innovation across the entire RAF fighter fleet was swift and decisive, driven by the undeniable combat superiority it conferred. Pilots, who had once struggled to match the Bf-109's vertical performance and acceleration, now found themselves with a crucial, life-saving edge. Testimonies poured in from squadrons across the country, describing how the new propellers allowed them to outmaneuver, outclimb, and outrun their German counterparts, to escape dangerous situations with greater ease, and to decisively turn the tide in aerial skirmishes. The skies over Britain, once a desperate battleground where every advantage counted, began to shift perceptibly in favor of the defenders, thanks in no small part to this mechanical marvel. Arthur Vance's insane propeller twist, the constant speed propeller, fundamentally altered the dynamics of air combat during World War II. It was not merely an incremental upgrade, but a critical game-changing factor in the RAF's ability to maintain and eventually secure air superiority, particularly during the latter stages of the Battle of Britain and in subsequent campaigns across Europe and beyond. This ingenious innovation allowed British fighters to fully exploit the raw power of their Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, transforming them into more versatile, more agile, and ultimately more deadly machines. While Vance himself, a humble mechanic who shunned the spotlight, never sought personal glory or public acclaim, his profound contribution was immediately recognized by those who truly understood its immense impact on the war effort. His groundbreaking work not only solved an immediate pressing problem, but also paved the way for further advancements in propeller technology and aircraft design, influencing the development of future generations of high-performance aircraft, both military and civilian. It underscored the vital, often overlooked role of unsung heroes, those brilliant minds working diligently behind the scenes, whose quiet ingenuity and relentless problem-solving often prove as decisive to victory as the overt bravery of the pilots in the cockpit. The enduring legacy of his work was etched not in medals or grand monuments, but in the dramatically improved performance of every fighter that took to the skies, a silent testament to a mechanic's genius. After the war, Arthur Vance, true to his humble and dedicated nature, continued his invaluable work in aviation, though largely out of the public eye and away from the clamor of wartime heroics. He remained a dedicated engineer and innovator, contributing significantly to the advancements in civilian aircraft design and further refining propeller technologies for a new era of flight. He never sought fame or personal fortune, content instead with the quiet, profound knowledge that his work had made a tangible, life-saving difference when it mattered most to his nation and to the world. His life was a quiet, unassuming testament to the power of focused intellect, relentless dedication, and an unwavering commitment to practical problem-solving. He often reflected on the war years, not with boasts of personal heroism, but with a deep, quiet satisfaction that he had played his essential part, however small it might have seemed to others in the grand scheme of things. His personal journey, from a working-class background to a pivotal figure in aviation history, mirrored the broader story of countless individuals whose brilliance, hard work, and often anonymous contributions formed the very backbone of the Allied war effort, often without receiving the widespread public recognition they so richly deserved. His innovations continued to influence aircraft design for decades, making air travel safer and more efficient for millions. This is the true legacy of Arthur Vance and his insane propeller twist. It is not merely a tale of technological advancement, but profound proof that even in the most desperate and darkest times, a single determined mind, focused on a seemingly small technical detail, can unlock revolutionary potential and fundamentally alter the course of history. It wasn't just about making planes faster. It was about the relentless pursuit of efficiency, the courage to challenge established norms and conventional wisdom, and the profound, often underestimated impact of ingenuity on the grand stage of human conflict. One propeller adjustment at a time, one meticulous flight test at a time, one unwavering belief in a better, more effective way. And in doing so, Arthur Vance proved beyond any doubt that the human spirit, when tempered by immense challenge, ignited by a burning passion for innovation, and guided by an unyielding commitment to excellence, is ultimately stronger than any technological barrier, more potent than any numerical disadvantage, and more powerful than any war machine. His story reminds us that true strength often lies in the quiet brilliance of those who dare to see solutions where others only see limitations.